You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Penny Dreadful After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Penny Dreadful After Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Penny Dreadful After Show for Season 1, Episode 4, Demimonde. I say it in my little French accent, I guess.
That's
Guys,
very good.
we are without Roxy Stryer and Tiana Hobson today, but it's okay because they're both coming back. Don't worry, they just had to take the week off for other obligations. I am Bobby DeMuro with Marisa Serafini, my favorite, and joining us, the new Roxy, Miss Sara Stretton.
Oh, no, do not say that.
I wouldn't call it new.
I could never fill those shoes. I could maybe like fill a jacket. I'm a little bigger than her.
I was gonna say, you're like 2 feet taller than her, so you're already filling the shoes, but...
No. So Roxy actually turned me on to this show, so I really have to give her the credit, and she's one of my best friends, so I'm very happy to kind of be part of her world, but I am in no way going to be able to step up and replace her by any chance. So guys, I miss her too.
Listen, hey, to be honest,
and Tiana.
We need a week off of Roxy. Tiana's fine. We need a week off of Roxy, so we're very glad that you're here.
We love you, Roxy.
And if you're only listening, look at these ladies in white tonight.
You know, we went with the twin thing.
That's true.
We had to.
You guys do look good. You're also sitting higher in your chairs than I am, which immediately makes me self-conscious, but it's cool, whatever. Let's get going on the show now, guys. We learned a lot today, a lot of character development today, not as much, creepy and scary and spooky as we've seen in past episodes, but a lot of humanity, a lot of character development on the real side, and a lot of stuff to get to. I want to start with Fenton, though. Let's start kind of maybe with not necessarily the simplest, but maybe one of the shorter character development arcs, and then we'll move to some of these bigger relationships with Ethan and Brona and Dorian and whatever, because Dorian comes back and he's means business in this episode. But starting with Fenton, where do we begin? He's chained up in the basement. He's creepy. He gets sedated by Sir Malcolm Murray and by Dr. Victor Frankenstein. The one thing I notice about Fenton, and the one thing about this story is Ethan, for as bad of a guy as he is, and we will talk about his sins later and all the things he said, Ethan has a huge moral qualm about how they're treating Fenton as kind of an experiment. Anything to that? Is this just Ethan being a good guy?
I think that it is, as you said, this is all about character development. And when you're looking at Ethan and you get his juxtaposition to Dorian Gray this episode, I think this plot with him, how he deals with Fenton, is enhancing that. On top of that, I think we're seeing foreshadowing of how this whole, 4 people melting together on this journey is going to develop. And you have to have those riffs in the beginning to see who changes sides. Like right now, I feel like Ethan's kind of on his own little island. He's the one sticking out that's worth him. He's like, oh, I am the moral guy. I'm not willing to quite be as brutal as all of you. But I think that we're going to see some changes of heart. And that's what I think that really Fenton was great for. Because he is that first step into their world and their first, obstacle or project together. And I mean, I feel very bad for Mr. Fenton. Poor kid. I mean, but did any of us really think that the first try for a cure was going to work?
I didn't think so, but I think also when we see Ethan being the moral ground, I guess, within all the characters, it makes me think, I mean, he is American. Maybe he's just grew up with a different culture and he's kind of having that culture shock with other people. I'm not saying everyone in Europe is like that and might not have as many qualms when they're doing that kind of dark behavior, but I think it's to show the audience that he's the good guy and might be kind of a red herring to set us up if something happens to Ethan that might be a surprise in the end.
One thing, Sarah, to go back on, do you feel sorry for Ethan do you feel sorry for Fenton, or are you almost happy for him that the suffering is over? Because he was in a lot of pain. He had the master who we'll see a little more of, who was, freaky and scary and not treating him well and had a bad, they were in a tough relationship. Do you feel sorry for him, or is it more...
It's one of those things where I think that we all feel sorry for Fenton's circumstances, that he's that whatever, some young kid somewhere down the line got sucked in this world. Do I feel bad that they were, you know, abusing him and keeping him chained up? No, because what else are you going to do? The moment he gets loose, you're unsafe. Like, I think that I am on the side of like Vanessa and everyone where they stood in that, and that they do have to put up that hard front because this is a dark world and you have to be dark to conquer it, I think. Maybe Ethan will be that person who can prove you can be moral and make a change. But I think that what we've really seen is to make a difference, you have to be willing to go there, at least in this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because long live Ethan, and not Ethan, sorry, Fenton, but I think his character gave us enough exposition to understand what's going to go on. He gave us more hints to what we should expect, especially with Vanessa and her character, which we'll get more into. But he did his part, and I actually am glad that his suffering is over. I mean, we feel bad because there's nothing we could really do about it, and he seems like someone who, yes, got sucked into that unfortunate situation, but he did his part. He served, his part.
With also great acting chops and some really good makeup.
Yeah. Very creepy, too.
Yeah, very creepy. And there's a big Ethan and Fenton secret that I want to get to. Before we get to that, though, let's take a quick break. We have a cool piece of news for you guys. Let's run that right now.
Hey guys, Maria Menounos here, and I want to share my newest book, The Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness, with you. Basically, every woman always stops me and asks me how I lost 40 pounds, so I decided to put it all in one book. Everything I did to lose 40 pounds step by step, and how you can too, is in here. I did it with no time, no money, and no willpower, and now I'm going to show you how to do it too. You can pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, wherever books are sold, and it's out June 3rd. So I hope you guys love it. I hope it helps you in your weight loss journey, and please, please tweet me and update me on your progress at Maria Menounos. Thanks.
I kind of liked how she had a little bit of dramatic music in the background there, too. It's like she knew it was on Petty Dreadful. I'm looking at this book right now. It is Maria Menounos' The Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness. I'm not a girl. I can't hold the book, though.
You can actually check out the inside of the book. I really don't think it's just for girls. I flipped through it, and she has recipes in there. She has interviews, and it is like very simple. Like, it was really bad. They put this out here like while we were supposed to be working, and I was like, I'm paying attention. Oh yeah.
No, look at it. I mean,
it's a great book. I've read a few chapters of it already, and it's not just for girls, just because girls is on it. It's for everyone. It's everybody's guide to life and diet and health and fitness. It's great, and there's a lot of great tips. You learn more about her and her background and how she grew up and what she does to maintain her amazing life.
I like it, and it's not a thin book. There's a lot of information in there. So, hey, if you're interested, don't take Fenton's nutrition plan. Do not eat dead cats.
No.
Maybe read this book. Don't take Simbeni and Fenton's nutrition plan. All right, and that is out, I believe, June 3rd.
June 3rd
was the date. You can pre-order it now. So let's go back to Fenton. One thing about Fenton and Ethan that I've noticed here, when Fenton goes to get sedated, and they need blood for the transfusion, and Dr. Frankenstein says, hey, Ethan, you're the guy. Give us some blood. And Ethan says, no, that's not a good idea. Two possibilities to me. One, dude's a total werewolf or something like that.
Absolutely.
B, he's been having sex with Brona. She's got consumption. Maybe he knows that, hey, my blood's no good, or whatever it is. He's got some kind of disease. But does everybody think it's the werewolf thing?
My first thought went to the werewolf because we've been predicting and throwing our theories out there, especially on the YouTube comments. Thank you guys. But my first thought is something is wrong with his blood, whether he's an animal or because I didn't think disease at all. I just thought something else.
I mean, I completely agree. I think there's always been something to, I mean, we got multiple examples in this episode. The wolves, in addition to like this whole blood commentary, also why he was never, sick, why he never really had a big worry about the consumption. I'm not sure if I'm convinced it's a werewolf, but I think it is something like we have that he has super fast reflexes. Now we have that he does have this kind of special sense to him, and that he obviously is either strong or immune or something. I haven't jumped quite on the werewolf bandwagon just because I feel like it's almost too predictable. And then we have so many characters in this where we already kind of know their backgrounds. I mean, most people going into the show are very familiar with Dr. Frankenstein, the Creature, Van Helsing, Dorian Gray. These all have names, so when they add in people that are less familiar, like Vanessa Ives, or I think Ethan could kind of be along that track. Someone that is almost just created for the show.
Well, and that's exactly what it is with Ethan. You talk about creative license when you do stories like this, when you do Frankenstein, when you do Van Helsing, you can put your own spin on it, but I think a fan who watches this show is going to expect a certain thing. We talked about that last week with what you expect and what you know. So when you have Frankenstein and Van Helsing and all these, characters that everybody knows, when you create somebody like Ethan who comes out of the blue and nobody knows him, that's where you really take your creative license. So we got to play Frankenstein straight, we got to play Caliban straight, but Ethan's a total wild card. So whether it's a werewolf or something else, he's the one it's impossible for us to predict because anything could happen because he's their freedom to be able to do whatever they want when they have to tell Frankenstein's story almost to the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. And and my personal opinion is if he is a werewolf, why is he so reliant on guns? Like, wouldn't we have seen there's some inclination more of that or more wolf-like behavior? Because to me, it's like, if you're a wolf, if you're a werewolf, I feel like you'd be just like a really skilled, like, hand combat guy. And he obviously is that, but his number one weapon is guns. So I think that maybe there's something a little more. Or at least I'm kind of hoping.
Is he hairy enough to be a werewolf?
We don't know yet.
I'm going to go with yes.
Should have gotten like Zach Galifianakis to play this. Before we get to Ethan, though, let's do one more thing on Fenton, and then we'll move on to Ethan and Brona, which is one of the big stories. But Fenton gets loose. He kind of chews off his wrists and chews away those shackles or whatever, and he gets loose. And we see his master in Vanessa's room. They're looking for Vanessa. Before we talk about Vanessa's relationship, Fenton dies. He's put out of his misery. Victor Frankenstein, not a physical fighter, huh?
Doesn't seem like it. And honestly, I think it was also an ode to his physique as well. He's a small, skinny guy. And it doesn't seem like he's the muscle. He's more the brains of the operation.
And isn't it the same? Isn't it establishing with the other scene when Frankenstein is sitting in the room with the maps, with all the cartographic equipment, and he asks Murray about going to Africa, going to the Nile, and Murray says, Ethan's just a finger on the trigger. He doesn't mean anything to me. You're too valuable. You can't come. Murray may be saying that that's true, that Victor is valuable, but Murray's also kind of saying, Victor, you're not man enough to go to Africa. You stay in the lab, dude. You're tiny.
Yeah. I think it was exactly like that.
Which is a shock.
I mean, I don't mind that, though, because Victor, he brings the intelligence exposition to every story as well. So, I mean, we have Ethan. He is the gunslinging guy. So, have Ethan be the honcho man.
And then I feel it's so funny, though, because Sir Malcolm Murray, he straddles that line between the both of them, where he might say right now that Ethan's just like a finger on the trigger, but I think that Ethan might end up meaning more to him just because he is that line. He seems very smart. He's very adventurous, but he also is the one who can step up and take care of himself. So I find his character I love his character because I feel like you don't get a lot of that in like older gentleman characters where he is physical and he's smart and he's planner and he's kind of pulling this band of people together. So I'm so glad that I was a little frightened that Fenton was actually going to get the best of him, or that his master wasn't going to flee. That I was very confused by.
Well, see, that's I think goes to the point that Fenton and his master have something very specific, and Murray's worthless to them, Ethan's worthless to them. They need Vanessa. I mean, they say it, obviously, but it's so valuable to need Vanessa that they're willing to not kill everybody or do whatever, and they'll go get her in another way.
Yeah, but it also points the finger that who is controlling this operation, because they mentioned Mina, and you saw the master come, but the master didn't. It didn't seem like there was any type of decision making. Like if this is a plot, if this whole thing has been a plan to get Fenton captured, to put him in the basement, to have all of these dots connected, you would think that if the master of Vanessa wasn't there would have been more, I don't know, communication or planning. To me, it seems like all of this action pointed to someone else pulling the strings, pointed to someone else like that the master had to go back and report to. They couldn't take action. To me, that's what this was all saying, that everything was so fast paced and so like, she's not here, she's not there. There was no actual like communication. So this is all like, okay, this is levels of authority and who is it all pointing to?
It's a bureaucratic system because I like exactly like that, because in last week's episode we saw lots of different meanings of master, because maybe this white, pale, vampire-ish looking creature was Fenton's master, but who is this master's master? Is it Amun-Ra and Amunet? Maybe, because we're seeing like different masters. So which one is the ultimate person that's controlling everything?
And who is the master's next slave or the next minion? Because Fenton's gone, so what's the next tactic for them to try to get to Vanessa?
Of course.
But we'll see about that. Anything else on Fenton, or shall we move on to Ethan and Brona?
I mean, just before like we move on to like coupling them down, while we're talking about them as a group, what I find so interesting is that the four of them start off this episode with a huge conversation about looking each other in the eye and being like, tell me basically from your soul that we're, gonna be partners. And then the entire episode is just about like how many secrets they can keep from each other.
Yeah.
And then, the honesty, you have Dr. Frankenstein in the middle shutting doors with Van Helsing. You have him seeing the monster. You have everyone having all these secrets when they start this episode with, let's be fealty only to each other. And I'm like, well, that worked for a grand total of 2 seconds.
Well, and it's also because all these guys personally, they have their own secrets their secret lives going on, and then when they're forced together on this mission, they're going to want to try to keep those secrets apart from each other, which might be prohibiting them working well and really cohesion, like really working and blending together. So all these guys individually, they all have secrets.
Well, speaking of secrets, we start to learn a lot of them about Ethan when he goes with Brona and they're hanging out in bed, and then he tells her he's going to have a night on town. We learn a little bit about Brona, which is interesting to us, of her engagement to the Riveter and how abusive that was and how awful that was, and then really how she started and became a prostitute because of that. And then Ethan turns around and says to her, quote, "There are such sins on my back, it would kill me to turn around." What sins are those? Not to get into predictions yet, obviously, but Ethan, we have been hinting that he's a bad dude. There's problems in America, and he comes out and says it without saying it, that something awful has happened or he has done, and he's persona non grata somewhere. Scary guy, huh? Not what he says.
It's funny because you say scary, and I
wouldn't say scary.
I always feel pity or something.
Really?
It seems like there's a lot been forced on his past, where I think that there's a reason he's running, in a way, turned his back on it. And as I said, we have so many hints today. We have him talking to the wolves. We have the fact that his favorite pictures were of animals and the sun on the wall, and that they weren't primitive, but truthful. And I just feel like he does have such a heart and such an awareness of what he's gone through with, like, there's regret, there's sorrow there. So it makes me feel for him instead of against him.
Interesting. I see him differently. I see him almost as a predator in a weird way, not just the wolf metaphor, werewolf, whatever, but just in kind of a predatory way, and not overly aggressive as a predator, like, Dorian Gray would be like coming onto a woman aggressive, something like that. I mean more along the lines of just very cunning, very shrewd, knows when to play his cards, knows when to hold them, and then lets out just enough for the audience to learn, like, oh, he's a bad dude, or oh, something happened in America, or whatever it is. And he almost gets to that point, like when he's down in that dog versus rat betting situation that was ridiculous. Almost gets to the point where he's going to go over the top. Then he does, because he has to beat up those guys. But he just kind of keeps him tight enough that you don't quite know what he's doing. And that, to me, is the scariest thing. He could blow at any minute, but he's got such control over it. He knows when he wants to blow. It's not going to be, undone.
See, I disagree. I just feel like he does have this power to be the aggressor, to be a warrior, to be animalistic. But I feel like he was put in a position where he almost did bad things. Like, you saw him really viscerally react to the little terrier killing all the rats. But I think part of that, well, at least to me, was like the control of the situation, all the people jeering, all of the pressure that they put this dog and these things in this fighting circumstance. Like, I think that almost Ethan was put so that he killed people, like used as a tool, that he was forced. Like the gun for someone else. And so I think that that's where he's been this pawn, and he's realized that he's committed all these sins or grievances or horrors. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was himself, but I'm sure we'll find out soon.
Oh, we'll definitely find out. maybe more pertinent to his relationships and what we learned what else we learned today with Brona. Are he and Brona done for good?
I don't think so.
Is Brona done for good?
I think the interesting thing is how now we see this budding relationship with Ethan and Brona, but now Brona's telling an intimate, personal story of her life. So she herself is getting attached to Ethan because Ethan didn't ask anything. She's the one willing to discuss her life. So I think this relationship is definitely still building, despite that one probably short breakup that she's calling it off. But going back to the whole prostitution, how she got into that, and now I feel like why she wants to sleep with people because guys pay her, which gives her that self-worth. So that's why she keeps sleeping with other people and then trying to get that from Ethan again, because Ethan's really just loving her, like making love, not really doing it out of a bad way, just in not prostituting way. So it shows that Brona really does care, and to probably break it off, she's like, okay, I'm going to keep you away in a distance. You're still going to have to pay like everybody else to put that barrier up between her and Ethan.
She's just got commitment issues and she doesn't want to look vulnerable. It's the same old story. Happens to tons of men and women. This is just another universal thing with, a twist of consumption and all this stuff that's going on. Okay, I agree with that. I think we'll see her again too. We're not done with her. But the interesting relationship issue with her too is the breakup started, she stormed out because of the appearance of Dorian Gray. And she said it was on Vanessa. I don't know if you guys feel differently. I don't think Vanessa was the cause of this. I think Vanessa was a very easy excuse for Brona to say, you go back to your lady friend Vanessa talking about your weird stuff. I'm out of here. It was really Dorian Gray.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. Definitely Dorian
100%.
Gray.
So does she have, so why would Dorian Gray? If he was a client, if she was hired, who cares? She can move on from that. She's experienced. She's a veteran at doing this. Is there something more with Dorian Gray?
I mean, for me, I think that there was, I don't know how, I know we've established that Brona was a prostitute. We don't, and she says at the end of this, like, you can pay me like anyone else does. But there was also some resistance when she slept with Dorian Gray, where before she slept with him, she was like, oh, we have to stop because of, the consumption. So I think that there is like a mix of emotions for her with him. She thought someone really connected with her. She thought someone thought she was beautiful, but there is also probably a shame in that, it was photographed, it was raunchy, it was all of these things. And she did them while developing this relationship with Ethan. I think it's a very complicated situation.
Yeah, and I also thought, putting all of them together now, we have that, love square going on that we called last week.
Oh, excuse me. We did not call it. Who called it?
I think both of us called it. But you definitely called it.
I definitely
called it. But did it end up the way you thought?
No.
It's not done yet, though.
But we definitely saw jealousy within Brona, which also goes to show that she really might have actual real feelings for Ethan. Therefore, she felt hurt because someone else came into the picture.
You mean you're talking about Dorian?
Dorian came into the picture knowing Dorian and Ethan now knowing each other. She's might see more competition.
Listen, kids.
Someone over her.
Kids, this is why you don't send naked selfies to people, because there's photographic evidence. This is the same thing happened in the 1800s right now. Brona, Dorian, photographic evidence. Remember that guy there was taking photographs?
Yep.
Those can't get back to Ethan. And I believe since Ethan's hanging out at Dorian's place with all those portraits and all that art, wouldn't those photographs probably be somewhere there too?
I just thought it was very ironic that they toasted to Vanessa instead of to Brona, because I was like, that's what you have in common? Are you sure? Let's rethink things.
This is the weird thing about this square, though. This weird love parallelogram, whatever you want to, pick a polygon. Because it seems like Dorian is pursuing Vanessa. Vanessa, we've gotten hints before, is kind of pursuing Ethan at points, so there's tension there. Ethan certainly has been pursuing Brona and was with her or whatever, and then who knows where Brona is with somebody like Dorian. So it just kind of keeps going in a circle.
I felt tonight's episode Vanessa was going after Dorian.
Oh, for sure, but I'm saying in the past Dorian has pursued Vanessa hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that where they left Vanessa in the situation when she was alone in the theater, I was like, that was probably to me one of the most interesting moments of the episode, and I'm so glad they put it in there, that reaction of her, because she is such a She lures people subconsciously or overtly. And it was like the one time she was kind of left alone. And the one thing it did seem like she really wanted Dorian. And the action on her part was very interesting, because to me, her and Ethan always felt like a distant future that they can refer back to, like, oh, remember episode 1, remember this card? But it didn't seem to me like it was happening anytime soon. So I believed in Brona and Ethan's relationship and their love for each other. So
Well, I'm sorry
they're part of you don't know that
they're done.
No,
I don't think they're done either, but it's going to be a rocky road for a little while.
I have quite the prediction for that one, so
All right, I can't wait for that one. But let's get to maybe the biggest point of the show, the very end, when Ethan and Dorian have a little Brokeback Mountain moment, I guess.
That's the most important part to the show to you? You didn't like the play?
Well, the play was important to me. I mean, we'll talk about the play in a second, but before that, I want to get to this, because this idea of the absinthe and all of the imagery that we see leading up to it, when Wagner gets put on, when Dorian starts playing Wagner, and all that imagery leading up to the kiss and you know, the little hookup, to put it in a really, you know, stupid modern day phrase. What do you make of all this imagery? What was the significance of all this stuff? What's going through Ethan's mind when we see all this?
Are you talking?
Obviously chaos.
All the very quick shots, everything that's happened that night. I mean, is he regretting what's happened? Is he overwhelmed with what's happened? Was the absinthe taking hold and he sort of blacked out? I mean, where is he?
I feel like I've seen this shot sequence really reminded me of the same use of absinthe in Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
Where they use that effect as, to me, it is the racing of the mind. It is what's going on in his heart and all the struggles. And being that they have all this imagery, which to me showed the doubt that he has in the positions he's put himself, is why he led to this rash decision. I don't think his heart is anywhere near Dorian Gray. I think that all the imagery showed the overcoming of emotion and some need for release, and Dorian was there. And to me, it almost felt like a trap that Dorian set.
Yeah, and maybe I feel like, because even before they took the absence, Dorian was talking about the different scents that things lead off, and I'm like, I was kind of going, if Ethan is this animalistic kind of person, maybe he's getting attracted to Dorian's scent, and the absence is just enhancing that, therefore, you know, the hookup in the end. So I'm thinking maybe that came into play if Ethan is this animalistic character. Just going. Then that might be a slight prediction, but it's definitely showing the chaos that's going on within Ethan, that he can't handle it and he needs, again, that release.
Completely.
He needed a rebound from Brona. It's as simple as that. No, I agree with what you're saying about manipulating him, or it's a trap set by Dorian, because Dorian knew what happened with Brona. Even if he may not have known the specifics, he knew that she stormed out, and when he came out, she was gone and Ethan was standing there at the play. So he knew that something happened to make Brona storm out in the middle of the theater. So Dorian may have thought, hey, this is my shot.
And if there's any knowledge base that Dorian has, it's this. It's understanding when people want to be, in a way, taken over or are in a vulnerable position. That is his skill. That is what he knows. And I think that he can get a read so quickly on when people are emotionally conflicted, and when he can kind of bend them to do what he wants, that I completely think he had knowledge of what was going to happen. To me, Dorian had complete control over this situation. I'd be surprised if the absinthe even had an effect on him.
Yeah, he can definitely read people, and especially, and if he's trying to build maybe this relationship with Vanessa, but still having that control over Ethan, where do you think it's going to go?
Well, it's also that search. I think that when you position Ethan and Dorian against each other through the whole episode, Ethan has this hard exterior, but he shows so much feeling. That's what we were just getting in every scene. He was opening up with Brona, then he got in the fight after kind of falling apart with the dogs, and then he's just constantly, he presents this hard exterior of this American, but there's so much feeling going on. And then you have Dorian, who just talks about craving that feeling. So it's like they're almost like two halves of a whole. So I kind of understood this union of a sort at the end, because Ethan has the insides of what Dorian's searching for. He wants to have those emotional connections, or at least he feigns that he wants the emotional connections.
I find it interesting how Dorian might be attracted to Ethan as well, because we see all the portraits of women on his walls, but then he's having this relationship with Ethan. So where do you think Dorian's going with that? Because it seems like Dorian has a fascination for interesting women, one, and or women that are dying creatures, because he was talking about Tristan and Isolde story, and as we know, the end of that. So just like these dying women in his life, he might be attracted to as well.
To me, it's a checklist. It's the
like a bucket list type of thing.
It's the bucket list of sins or who he can be with. And if you looked at like the imagery of him on the couch after you get that big aerial shot in the beginning, you get everything going on. He's watching other people. He's watching girls on girls. He's watching girls on guys. He has a guy on his left. He has a girl below. And with the portraits, yeah, they're 90% women. But I think for me, when I was glancing at it, I could see ever so often a male. So I think that it's like a treasure hunt. It's just...
I think with Dorian too, obviously one of the things they're trying to establish about him is he's very empty on the inside. He's very pleasure driven. He's very hedonistic. And one of the things he says tonight to Ethan, actually, once you get used to something, why bother? It's just repetition. He was talking about betting on the dog, betting on how many rats were going to get killed. But that idea of like, once you get used to something, why bother? It's just repetition. Think about that with like anything you do in life. Mm-hmm. You know, it's such a existentialist almost way to look at things. It's like, what do you feel inside if you're that empty or if you're that jaded or whatever it is? And so for Dorian, it's not about, you know, leaving a legacy or building a relationship or doing any of these things. It's just purely like, I'm here, whatever, it's pleasure, we've done it before, who cares? And he just has to go get all of it.
He's so bored.
Yeah, pleasure and adventure. And as we said before, he lives life to the fullest. He does a bunch of million things because he loves that drive and the adrenaline, I guess you can call it, just in life. So seeing different things, it kind of does ring true to his character in a way of the Dorian Gray story.
I have to point out that am I cutting you off, Marisa?
Oh, no, go for it.
They were killing me this episode they kept hinting that they were going to show his portrait.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't.
And I fell for it twice. In the very beginning, they had the shot where it was like he was all the way on the left-hand side, and I was like, oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. They're going to turn. They're going to show it. They're going to show it. And then they like zoomed out. And I was like, hey, come back. And then at the end, they're talking about, oh, what's your favorite portrait? And he's like, oh, it's not in this room. And I was like, go see it. Go. Let's
show
go
the
look.
audience.
Hey,
I'm waiting.
But speaking of teasing in this episode, because that's an interesting point, they do tease us a lot and they keep us on our toes a lot. When you think about it, looking back on the episode, not a lot of incredibly horrifying things happen. Obviously, the master, the creature, that was scary in Vanessa's room. But besides that, it was a lot of, for Penny Dreadful, it was a lot of run-of-the-mill stuff. But the scene that gets me about teasing was at the theater. When Brona and Ethan are there, they sit down, and then they show Caliban go through every behind-the-scenes... And we were talking about it. We were like, somebody's going to die. Like, something's going to go wrong.
Why is he running so fast?
Why are they showing everything? And I want to go back and watch the episode one more time just to appreciate that scene for the artistic value of what it is and what it means to work in the theater behind the scenes. Because the whole time when I saw it the first time, I was like, he's going to screw up. Somebody's going to die. Something's going to go wrong. Something horrible is going to happen. And afterwards, I was like, gee, that's a really beautiful scene. And it totally got ruined because I was scared the whole time.
But I think that's also part of the point.
Yeah.
I think that's something that they're doing so well with that they do. It's not just in like the lines or the character work. It's how they film it that makes you feel the suspense, makes you think something's going to happen. And it's so intentional. You can tell because they'll like make a slight movement with the angle. They let you set it up for that next shot and then they don't give it to you.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I know what you're doing. I know I want this, and you're just not letting it happen. It's wonderfully
That's a testament to the editing as well, and just throwing so many red herrings in the audience's way, because it makes us feel we have no idea what's going on, even though we have this added expectation of these stories that we know and love. But they're really taking it their own turn and twist, and they'll surprise us when they want to.
That's the thing. These are the stories, you already know them, but we're going to tell them on our time, not your time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have to, show that appreciation for people working behind the stage in theater. I mean, I used to be one of them, so I know what it's like running around. I was like, I definitely feel for the creature.
No, but
it's kind of a horrible production.
And that's an interesting thing. Well, I don't know, for that time, and I think that was like standard fare for that time in England.
Yeah, even the name of the play, the transformed what was it? The transformed creature?
Yeah, transformed monster.
Yeah,
Or something
monster,
like
that-
that.
Beauty
was
and
it.
the Beast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
falling
just
in love with the wrong
the
thing.
symbolism of that. You think something was going to happen, that the creature might appear in a way, but nope.
She just bled and bled.
Yeah,
and
she bled a lot. He just kept going. That's the one thing about that, though, with the creature, with Caliban, because we don't see him a ton tonight. The confrontation scene with Victor, which we can talk about in a second, but this rigging scene, this behind the scenes in the theater scene, where we were all horrified something's bad going to happen and it isn't, and we're let off the hook when nothing bad happens and he's waiting to do the blood, and the guy comes down, Vincent, I believe, his friend, what Vincent's his name, comes down after performing, and excuse my language, he said, "Oh, my knees can't take this fucking play." Like, it's just funny, you know? So we're waiting for something, build up, build up, build up. Oh, thank goodness it's funny. And Caliban gives like a huge laugh and a great smile and stuff, establishing he is part of the company, he has found a home, he has everything but the woman, the bride,
The woman.
which is a big deal. But he's made his way and he's found his way, and that's a sweet moment. And oh yeah, he's still got this problem in the back.
This, I mean, I really like this plot line, but it's also sometimes one of the most confusing for me to kind of understand, because when I see Caliban in the theater like his area, I actually like him. I actually want him to get his way. I think that him having a mate would really work. But then I get so confused because his argument with Dr. Frankenstein is just like, I am your master. I am basically a god, and I'm the next, race that's going to take over the world. And I'm just like, if Caliban really thinks that way, then why is he staying working in the theater? Why does he keep doing that if he really thinks he's so above everyone else? I feel like he kind of, I don't know if he's that torn that he has two worlds, but I'm just missing that link, that why he's doing both.
Yeah, I think Caliban believes he's mentally superior than all the other humans, but the human, every time he steps and shows his face into the crowd, he is always reminded that he's physically inferior. And then, but having that control over Victor, it's like, hey, you should feel bad for me because you made my life a living hell, in a way, that he's using that against Victor. And then there was also the line, "Look upon your master," his godlike complex. And I just saw religion underneath that, because people are created in God's image according to religion, and then he's created in Victor's image, which wasn't beautiful in a way.
The thing that interests me about Caliban, I look at him a little bit differently from you guys. I almost look at him like he's going through kind of a bully complex where, bullies, and this is a very broad generalization, but bullies get bullied and then become bullies on some level, and you want to take it out on somebody weaker than you, or you have so much pain you have to take it out or whatever. And I know that's not true in every case, but very generally speaking. And it looks like Caliban he wasn't bullied, but in a way he was taken advantage of, or he sees it, by Victor because of what happened to him, and then he was strewn away, and Caliban feels pretty low. Everyone in the street treats him lowly. He goes to the theater and finally finds something wholesome, but there's still this idea of, I was mistreated, I was treated lowly, I'm scum of the earth kind of deal. And so when he sees Victor, which is his revenge point 1,000%, it's not just, hey, I'm not the scum of the earth. It has to be, I'm better than you. It's not, I'm your equal. Screw that. I'm better than you. And I think that's where the godlike complex comes from for him. And it's not, I don't want to say it's an act that he's putting on. I think he really does believe that, but I think he has to go over the top with Victor to protect himself and to toughen himself up and to say, you mistreated me, and I'm going to show you why that was a mistake, dude. You made a mistake, and I'm going to make you pay for it, kind of idea.
Exactly.
Definitely. I mean, it was interesting. I think it's so great that you point out that there was this underlying tone of religion in this episode, and they fit so much in that I feel like you could talk about for hours. The imagery, whether it was just like the shot angles from so many from above, or the highlighting of the cross, or the church, scene, it really was, I think, woven throughout this.
Or the apple.
The apple, exactly. Yeah. And the fruits and citruses and the garden. If you think
there was also so much like sexual imagery in the garden.
Absolutely.
Not just with the flowers, touching everything. There's so much symbolism in this show. It's really beautiful.
It is. Let's talk about that garden really quick with Dorian and Vanessa. We covered Dorian a lot, but we haven't talked so much about Vanessa. I can't remember which one of you said it. She pursued him very hard, or it seemed to be pursuing him very hard in this episode, in the garden, following around, hanging out with him, and then again she went to the theater to seek him out. You know, wink and a nod, how you doing, across balconies. What does Vanessa see in Dorian?
Well, I think Vanessa likes the way how Dorian can read people, because we see Vanessa can read people to a certain extent, but Dorian's always reading everyone. And the fact that I believe Dorian said something tonight about Vanessa's character, that you have secrets. And then we see, you know, a couple episodes back where Vanessa knows that everyone else has secrets, but then Dorian actually pointing her out that you have secrets, and the whole symbolism of the nightshade, which was just, I guess, a reference, a metaphor for Vanessa's character, that she's beautiful on the outside, but deadly as well. And I thought that was beautiful, and how well that Dorian just, like, they're so alluring, both of them, and they're really playing off of that.
He just heightens her senses so much. I feel like every encounter they have, particularly in this one, it's as if they're just touching and they're not, constantly. What he says to her, what he's showing her, what he's making her smell. And I think that that's just very exciting for her, especially when she is so haunted by all these demons. I think she knows he has secrets, but I think she's almost like willing to put all of her any doubts aside, because she sees so much beauty in him. And when she's so crowded by darkness and creatures and everything all the time, he's like almost like a fascinating sanctuary. And she should stay away from.
It's that idea of, well, let's talk about a fascinating sanctuary she should stay away from. What was the first plant? Not the rare orchid. I have the rare orchid. But the nightshade, the first one. Because that whole sensuality and the sensory imagery stuff going on, where he says, what do you smell? What's it telling you? Whatever he asks. And she says, you know, touch me with your finger, you know, taste me, kiss me, whatever. She goes through that whole thing. It's all sexual and love and romance and all these things. And then he says, well, it's deadly. You know, and there's that dichotomy again between love and death and loss and things like that. But it's that sensuality that she is totally head over heels for him, not in like a traditional sweet love way, but maybe more of a little bit of a sexual, sensual way.
I'd say lust. Definitely.
Yeah. But she's head over heels for him. And he, while I think feels the same, he wants to play the game a little bit. Like, if he just can't, it's too easy for him.
He found something that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
So I think he wants to make like the most out of it for as long as possible.
It's a meaningful pursuit.
They go to that Rothschild's slipper, the rarest orchid on earth. He shows it to her, and then he's like, hey, I got to bounce. Got a commitment. So he wants, you know, if you were really, look, if I'm into a girl and we're having a day like that, I'm like, hey, let's hang out some more. What do you want to do after this? But he's playing the game. He's like, oh, I have to go. I have another commitment.
And he's following the imagery of the flower.
Exactly.
They talk about how it takes years and years and years to bloom. And she asks him, well, how long does it actually bloom for? And I don't even think he gives her a direct answer.
I think he said a moment.
A moment.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
but even that's vague.
Yeah.
So I think that in essence is their relationship, as beautiful and as perfect as it could be. It's a moment each time.
They definitely have moments.
All right, one last thing on Vanessa, and then we'll get to predictions and stuff. We don't have any news today, but we will be back next week with that. But last thing on Vanessa, she returns home. Let's speed forward to the end of the episode, or near the end of the episode. She returns home from the theater. The creature has been in her room, and she talks to Sir Malcolm Murray. She knows something's wrong immediately when she walks in the door. Something, so she has, I mean, we know she has some kind of power, but she
like
has
clairvoyance.
Exactly. She knew something was wrong the second she walked in the door, went up to him and said, what's wrong? And he tells her that the creature was in the room, and that, you know, they walked the creature into their house unknowingly by bringing Fenton. The big part of this scene, though, and the big part of their relationship is we learn a little bit more about Mina and a little bit more about Vanessa and Sir Malcolm and what they feel about each other, because at one point Sir Malcolm says to Vanessa, you are the daughter I deserve, which was not said in a nice way.
No, I think it was also Sir Malcolm's realization that his original daughter, Mina, was such a good person that he didn't deserve such a good person, because he's done dark, sinful things in his past, and he obviously recognizes that. And then so he can understand that he should have had Vanessa too, because she has a dark personality. She has a cruel sense of nature, and then that's why he wanted Vanessa. He should have deserved Vanessa instead. So, it also adds to just their relationship. It's even more complicated than we think.
Well, they have, how I take it is they have love-hate relationships, not only with each other, but with themselves. And when he does, like, such a point, like, The Deserve was not happy, but I think they're so complicated that everything is multi-layered. That it is like, I don't deserve a good daughter. That it is like, if I had had a daughter like you, she wouldn't be in danger. There's so much going on to it. But that makes it fun.
Yeah, and also we hear Vanessa's like, I betrayed your daughter once. But Sir Malcolm has ignored Mina his entire life. So they're both guilty parties, but maybe with Mina's disappearance. And it's about, trying to get Mina back. So they both acknowledge that it is their fault on different levels.
The one thing I did not like in this episode was in this scene, though. At the end of this scene, the same thing happens that happened at the start of this episode is the same thing that happened at the end of last episode, where they come together and they're like, hey, let's work together. We're going to do it this time. And Vanessa and Malcolm kind of do it again at the end of this scene when Malcolm says something to the effect of, we can lose all the battles as long as we, win the last one. Like, let's just stick it out. It's like, is this going to be a recurring theme? It almost breaks down every episode, and then it comes back together only to break down again.
See, but to me that makes sense. Like, they've been going at this for a lot longer than we've known them. And they have a lot more history than we know. And I think that it's one of those things like, you don't move out of a house because the sink is broken. I feel like someone said that to me earlier this week. They know they have all these battles between each other, but they've been doing this for so long and there's such a bigger picture. I think eventually, we're going to see a fight that separates them for a little bit.
Yeah, they have to work together, though, in order to get what they want, because they had the same objective. They have to work together.
Oh, I agree with it. I'm just saying I didn't like how are we going to have to deal with a little mini scene like this every week where they're like, hey, okay, no, forget the fights. We're still together. It's like, we get it. You're together. Let's just move on. I understand that there's tension between the two of them, but this is 2 weeks in a row now, and I know that Ethan and Frankenstein were involved in the first powwow, but we've had 2 powwows in a row now, so I'm like, okay, we're powwowed out. Let's go.
So many powwows.
Maybe we need Mina again.
Yeah.
Another Mina appearance.
Be back. She'll be back.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Predictions there.
Let's get on to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I guess I'll start. My prediction is going to be the same as it was last week. So, Sarah, you get to hear this first off. Although
great.
We've talked about it a little bit today.
I think.
The love square. I can't believe you tried to take credit for my love square.
Fine. You got the love square.
Yes. We could just go back on the YouTube. We could watch the video from last week. You probably did predict it. And, yeah. But we've got a little love square going on. Use your phone as the graphic.
Quadrilateral love.
Yeah, there's a bunch of quadrilaterals. And
we have a singer. We've got a polygon. Here's what it is. Let's get down to the prediction. Ethan, Brona, Dorian, Vanessa. There's all kinds of weird tension between the 4 of them in very different ways. And Sarah, what I predicted last week, and I'm sticking to this week, with these guys have seen this already, is the 4 of them, because there's so much tension, what Vanessa and Sir Malcolm are trying to do will be screwed up because of this tension. Dorian will mess it up, or Ethan is going to mess it up, or a combination of the two, or some force is going to cause that love square and everyone around them to separate at some point. And I don't know what the force will be. I don't mean anything supernatural. I'm talking about emotions. I don't know what the emotion will be or whatever, but we're not done seeing Brona, obviously. And that love square is going to screw something up.
All right. I have predictions, but I have kind of 2 of them, so I'll let you.
Okay. I think we're going to find more about Ethan's character, because we're getting hints that he's an animalistic type of beast. If he really is, I mean, I just hope it would be a werewolf, just to, go along the Gothic stories. It would make sense. But I mean, I wouldn't mind if they threw a completely different story at us. That would be fun too. So I think because when he was recalling that one area back in Colorado, that tribe, that the only thing he focused on were like the animals, the sun. So he's very full of earth and that earthly kind of being. So I think he might be a creature of some sort. And I also think that this so-called master or whatever that we're facing is because it wants Vanessa. I think eventually it's going to get to Vanessa.
One real quick thing on the tribe before your predictions. Those Anasazi, if you've never seen the images, it's literally cave dwellings. He describes it pretty well. It's cave dwellings in the side of hills and mountains and stuff. They are writing things on the walls. Where else have cultures written on walls before?
Egyptians.
Where have we seen hieroglyphics before?
Egypt.
Like episode 2. Interesting. I just realized that, so maybe there's a connection there with hieroglyphics and Ethan.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Or Ethan might be another beastly creature that we see in Egyptian. Maybe he's not a werewolf, but another creature that we might not be thinking.
No, I mean, so I'm gonna try and think these concise. And I'm sorry if you guys have already predicted them. I don't know what your predictions were in the past.
I'm sure Roxy hasn't.
No, Roxy and I have, pretty similar minds. We might be thinking the same thing.
True.
So I think my prediction is going to screw up your polygon. Kind of not.
Okay.
Where I think Brona's coming back. I think Brona's coming back as the bride of, going to be Dr. Frankenstein's new bride over there.
I'll allow
and I
it.
think that we've realized that creatures sometimes have memory triggers. And I think that eventually Ethan will be that memory trigger for her. Maybe someone else in the square will be a trigger for her. Maybe it won't be Ethan. He'll be offended because it's Dorian Gray or something. Who knows? So that's my main one. And then I had another one, but I forgot what it was.
That is a good prediction, though.
I think that Vanessa, I don't think they're trying to kill her. I think they're trying to kidnap her. And, I mean, there was a lot of mother mentioning. Earlier we found out there was putting two people together. So I think it's more of a sexual relationship that some creature or something is looking for. He needs a mate as well. That's the driving force of life, is love. And I think that's why everything's so complicated with Vanessa.
Like Amunet needs to possess Vanessa to have sex with Amra to bring about this blood curse.
Yes, or something along those lines.
One word, man.
That's crazy.
E-harmony. I guess it wouldn't happen in the 1890s in London.
They don't have internet.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought Frankenstein.
They have the theater, though.
They do have the theater. All right, as we get going, guys, social media links. Where can we find you two on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at Serafini TV.
And hi guys, thanks for having me. I'm Sarah Stretton. You can find me on other AfterBuzz shows like Game of Thrones, or you can find me at Anatomy of a Movie.
Anatomy of a Movie. I'm at Bobby DeMuro on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for joining us and for making us #1. I believe that's 3 weeks in a row.
Again.
Hopefully this is #4. Roxy and Tiana will be back very soon, but Sarah's going to sit in with us next week, I believe.
Yeah. I think I will be here.
Awesome. Can't wait for that. Thank you so much.
I'll try and get some notes from Roxy. I'll do some impersonations or something.
Just don't start drinking gin. We were alcohol free on this episode. That's it tonight, guys. Thank you for watching Season 1, Episode 4 of Penny Dreadful. Good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.